Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to another episode of the Your Gray Matters podcast. I'm here as always with my dad, Neil. How you doing today, Dad?
I am terrific. Hi, Jason. Hi, everybody.
So another great episode this week about something that's becoming, it's been around forever, but in an odd way, it's sort of becoming even more necessary than it has. We learn a little bit about sales this week.
Yeah, a terrific book by a terrific sales teacher, Rob Kinch. He and his business partner, Frank Dion, have a company that simply helps entrepreneurs do better in selling. I'm not a strong reader. We've talked about that on the podcast, but I've never seen a book where in less than 100 pages, you can become a sales professional. It's amazing. And with all the side gigs going on today, an entrepreneur is pretty well anybody who's out looking to make money. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So we might as well get into it. Make sure you leave a comment below about what one of your sales tips is or a strategy that's worked for you. Remember to
Mhm.
hit the subscribe button, like this episode, tell a friend. It all helps very, very much. And with
Yeah.
that, here is the episode. Welcome to Your Gray Matters, the podcast that unveils the miracles already amongst us. Here, we believe that the human mind cannot be defeated. Tune in to discover the fascinating people with extraordinary stories, innovative products, and groundbreaking services. With your host, Neil Silvert, who's earned his gray hair and still has use of his gray matter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Neil from the Your Gray Matters podcast. Welcome back. We hope that you had a great week. And we're really excited today because we have a tremendous speaker, Rob Kinch, and he's written a terrific book with his business partner. I'm going to tell you about Rob in a few minutes. But everybody, we're all looking for side hustles. It's become the biggest thing right now as people are working, they're doing good, honorable work, or maybe they can't find a job. So they're looking for something. And quite often people think about a specific side hustle, but it involves selling and they don't know how to sell. You're not sure what to do. And I will tell you that I picked up recently Rob Kinch's book, one of the best books I've ever seen. I'm going to tell you why. It's called Sales Made Easy for Entrepreneurs. Pitch products and survive, sell value, and thrive. Let me tell you why it's so great. The truth of the matter is, most people are afraid to sell. Most people don't want to read one of the million books that are on the market about how to sell and all the YouTube videos. Rob and his partner, in under 100 pages, will improve your life. Rob Kinch, welcome to Your Gray Matters.
Thanks, Neil. Great to see you.
Great to see you too. Hey, everybody, I met Rob quite a few years ago. Full disclosure, we've done similar types of business and we've known each other for years. One of the businesses required people to speak from the stage, be a presenter, and Rob and I always waited to hear which one of us would be on stage because Rob is one
Yeah.
of the best speakers that you'll ever hear. Rob's got a real history in sales, sales management, and his leadership spans like 3 decades. He's built sales teams with Fortune 500 companies like IBM and Microsoft. He started the technology distribution industry. He sold himself to IBM. So, selling yourself, we're going to talk about that today. And he just progressed through the industry. He's got a bio that if you want, you can read it in his book. But I want to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. You don't have to be an IBM or Microsoft scholar to be a great salesperson. You just have to get a sense of the basics and find out you can do it. And you've been doing it ever since you were a young kid, trying to get that first quarter into your pocket. Modern times, trying to get that first toonie into your pocket. Forget about
Yeah, there
quarters.
you go. Yeah.
Rob, welcome to Your Gray Matters. We are very excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
I'm really glad to have you. So, Rob, I got to ask you, do you agree with this? in the old days when we had to sell, and I think you and
Mhm.
I will remember this,
Mhm.
you had to do telephone selling. And I remember that telephone looked a whole lot bigger than it was because I was scared out of my mind to sell.
Mhm.
Many
Mhm.
people don't do a lot of phone selling, but there's technology, there's AI. But doesn't it just come down to telling your story, but listening, listening, listening? Let me ask you, what inspired you to write the book that you wrote?
Well, I think it started with just just feeling like we should document what we do because my business partner Frank and I were doing, we started our company, we were doing a lot of consulting, a lot of boardroom consulting, but we felt that all this stuff that they talk about, all that creates the fear for people in selling anything, selling themselves, selling a big expensive business solution to some big corporation, that it was people had, I guess, monetized it for so many years to make it unique and make it so complex and make it so hard, make it seem hard. So people would just created fear in them. And we felt that the approach really was very basically very simple. And we wanted, and basically wanted to put that across that sales was really not that hard if you had the right mindset and the right thought process behind it and understood that it's simply just a conversation,
Yes.
but a proper conversation. It's a conversation with purpose.
Okay.
That's the idea. It's just simply a conversation. And so just started documenting. To be honest, I wrote the book in a month, and
Wow.
I was just documenting. It was just kind of, I guess, you first thing I've ever written, like as far as a book goes, right? And it was just I started going and just started writing things out, and then next thing you know, we got a book. And just that's how it kind of came to fruition, is just that this shouldn't be so hard for people. How can we make it easier, right?
And that's why I love the book, because I also found it very, very easy to read and understand.
Mm.
Even it's under 100 pages, but the font is pretty big.
Hmm.
And you've just chosen a beautiful way to present your ideas. Rob, who's the primary target though for this book, and has that changed over the years?
Yeah, the target is really an entrepreneur, right? So someone, but entrepreneurs, that definition has changed a lot recently, right? I mean, entrepreneurs can be anyone. They're, you can have a bigger business. Typically, our customers from, like, we have a fractional sales company, my partner and I, business partner, and typically our customers are entrepreneurs that have got a great idea. They're taking it to market, but here's the thing: people, they're very technical people. So I'm in the computer industry. We do a lot of selling for the very technical, like technology solutions to an end user, to a business owner. And so these entrepreneurs that we originally uh, created the book for were those entrepreneurs that built their solution. They built some new AI solution or some new. It doesn't even have to be that much sizzle to it, like AI, but they get to a point where they don't want to sell, but
Uh-huh.
yet one of the principles of business, if you have no customers, you have no business, right?
Exactly.
Right. So they have to figure it out. So the thought was, well, if for those that we can't help, because we charge for our services, let's help those individual entrepreneurs understand that it's not that hard. If
Mhm.
you sell your value, and once you focus on the value of what you bring to your customers, then it can be just a simple conversation. And so that's kind of who is originally targeted at. But I
And
think today, sorry, go ahead.
no, you go.
Yeah. So I think today, like we were chatting earlier prior to the call, you have also entrepreneurs, not entrepreneurs at that. So you have people today that are starting up gigs, right?
Mhm.
Side hustles, gigs all over the place. And really what they don't realize is that they are selling as well, but there's some principles that you have to follow. If you want to have a successful podcast, if you want to have be successful on as an influencer, right? There's a lot of young 20 somethings, even teens, that are trying to be influencers. It still comes down to the value
Yep.
that you deliver. And if you don't deliver value, you will not have an audience. And that's the key, right?
And is that the core principle of all of this, or are there other core principles that are required for an entrepreneur to understand when selling something?
Yeah. Well, the first one is sell your value, not your product. Okay. The people do not buy your product, whatever it is. Like they're not buying Gray Matters podcast. They're buying the content that it delivers, right? The value they get from that. The other one is sales is simply just a conversation. So when you start with your value, just have a conversation with someone. And if around that, okay. And the one of our sales laws is, how do you have a conversation? Well, there's two things. Like one of our sales laws is shut up and listen,
Yep.
stop talking, right? The other one is shut up and ask questions. Because to have a conversation when you're selling it's really a back and forth. A natural conversation is not the used car sales guy. I don't know if right? You go to, I hate to, what's the word? Yeah, downplay that role, that
Yeah,
used car
don't,
sales guy.
yeah, you hate to beat up the used car
Disparage.
sales
Yeah,
guy.
I don't want to
That's a good
disparage them, right?
They're tough.
But
They'll get over it.
yeah, exactly, right. But they're but that person that's just coming, that's what we receive a lot, because people don't have the right training, they don't have the right thinking. So when you're going out to buy something as a consumer, you avoid the salesperson, right? Because they're not working with you, they're pitching at you. And so for us, we have to have a conversation which starts with, let me see if you're interested
Yes.
first. And then let me shut up and listen to what you're interested in. And let me ask questions, just like a normal conversation. Like, let's ask about, you have questions where you want to explore how they're feeling about something, or explore how they're, some numbers perhaps, or then you want to listen, you're listening to what they say, you're making statements in a normal conversation where we're conversing, right? And really that's all it is. Sales is simply just having that conversation around someone's interest in your value. And when you do that properly, they will naturally move forward or not. And that's the fourth thing, I think, third or fourth thing I'd say, is you have to have the right mindset. If I can't help you, that's okay.
Right.
I don't have to sell you anything, right? There's lots of people, and I think that's where it goes off the rails for people, because they get this, somebody wants to say, no, I don't think it's a fit for me, and they keep going and going and going and going and trying to continually sell their stuff, right? And then you just tick somebody off, and that's really not
Yeah, and
the approach.
reputation is very big, and having a reputation as a listener and a thinker is a
Mhm.
good thing. I think one of the mistakes that people make when they're trying to sell something is, you've said the word listen many times, Rob, and maybe
Mhm.
people need to understand, you have to listen. You can't be thinking about just what your next statement is to try and sell them. And
Mhm.
I think when you listen to someone, you're actually showing the respect that all people should show to each other. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because that's how conversations happen, right? Versus dissertations. You know what I mean? So you want to have a conversation, and and that's it, and it starts with listening. And I don't think we do that today. Right? I totally agree. We're not listening to each other enough.
It's true, and that's why, like, the 30-second TikTok is more loved than a
Yeah.
proper presentation, which is too bad, because given the chance, people usually say some pretty amazing things, and you're always going to get, I guess, what we call nuggets.
Hmm.
But again, as the salesperson, and we can't say it enough, if you don't have the respect to listen to someone, you're not there to jam a sale down their throat, because what did they teach us once, Rob? The person that has to make a sale usually is in that position because they're not listening.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What was the saying? We used to say when I was at IBM, is desperate salespeople have starving kids,
That's right.
right?
That's right. And it's true.
So,
It's true. What do you think are some of the most important techniques? And I'm talking about besides listening, which maybe isn't so easy for people.
mhm,
But the truth
mhm,
is, you go out on the road, you're new to selling, but you want it, you don't want your product to be the best kept product in the world. You have to start talking about it. You got to run your mouth.
mhm,
What are some
mhm.
of the techniques that you think entrepreneurs should be using?
Sure. Well, the first technique comes down to how do you articulate your value to the market, right? And really articulating your value comes from your customer's perspective. A lot of entrepreneurs, whatever you're producing as far as your product, we have a very much a bias because we have a perception of what we think is valuable to people. And so if that they start with that, and what tends to happen is you're still pitching your product because you haven't connected with what do people really find valuable.
Sure.
And really it starts with that. If you can present your value and from their perspective, then what you're doing is they're going to decide whether they connect with that value or not,
Mhm.
right? So the first technique is, and it's in the book, we talk about an approach and how you create that value. How do you create that value statement that you're going to make to the market? And by the way, it works whether you're in conversation in traditional sales or whether you're an online person, right? You're doing digital, you're presenting your business digitally online. It's still a principle that's the same, which is present that value in that articulated statement. And what the value does is you present it in a way that it provides glimpses of how you can help them. So
Aha.
there's a concept called curiosity, which works in every wake of life. If you go to a party and you're not curious about what someone has to say, you don't engage with them,
Right.
right? It's a simple concept. And one of the easiest approaches is if I said to you, Neil, guess what?
What?
Exactly. Right? What? You want to answer it. Like that's a simple curiosity approach that we talk about. So your value creates that what? Tell me more.
Uh-huh.
Tell me, right? It creates that tell me more. What do you mean? And so by doing that, you get permission to have a conversation. Because if they connect and say, well, tell me more, what do you mean by that? You're now engaged in a conversation and they initiated it. You didn't. You weren't pitching your product, right? And so that it's that engagement, that value is crucial to creating that engagement properly. And once they engage, now it's our job to just have a conversation. And the first thing the other next technique I'll say is you don't respond to that engagement by pitching your product,
Right.
right? That's a big no-no because you think, oh yeah, I got somebody, and now you're blah, 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 and you start inundating them and throwing up all over them, right?
Yep.
And so the next step is respond to that with questions, right? And questions about them. Oh, what do you mean? They may ask you, what do you mean by that? Well, can I ask you some questions about what you're involved in, what you're doing? And really it's respond to that with questions, and then that stimulates the conversation. Now the trick, and we outline it in the book as well, is how to use those questions properly. Because if you're just asking questions without a purpose, then you're basically a random person walking through the woods. People will get bored with you very quickly, right? So you're asking questions that stimulate the conversation, but you're looking for urgency. You're looking for someone that you might be able to help. and your thought process when you're asking these questions, if I can help you, I'll tell you. If I can't, I will tell you that too.
And, and,
And I
and
think, yeah,
I
and that
saw
gives you
that in
that.
the book, Rob. I saw that in the book, and you're right. If you determine that it really stuck out. It was a brilliant comment that you guys make in the book, which is,
Mhm.
if you find that you can't help someone, don't keep trying to help them.
Exactly. Exactly, right? That's exactly it. And people respect that.
Yes.
And that's how you create a long-term relationship, because and I'll take the corporate view of this. Basically, what we find is when we do that with a customer, we would say, I don't think we can help you um, today, but are you okay if we reach out in the future if something changes? And we believe, now that we understand, because you've spent time to understand their situation, you have more information. So now you can position something in the future because oh, maybe this new widget that we have, maybe that'll help Bob.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll reach out again because this is a new thing that based on what he told me before. So if you're having a real conversation, you can do that. If you're just pitching your product, you can't, because you know nothing about them, right?
So, in a way, I think very quickly you're trying to build some sort of a relationship with this new person, a
Hmm.
genuine one. It doesn't have to be, it may not last more than the 25 seconds that you're initially talking, or it could be longer. But
Hmm.
a skill set, I think, is through listening properly and asking more questions, you're building a relationship of caring.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this is why I say, we talk about the book being really designed for business entrepreneurs, but I think it helps you with anything,
Yeah.
right? If you want to have we're all selling ourselves daily to everyone, right? So people think, oh, I'm not a salesperson. Yes, you are, right? What do we say? Are you married? If they go, yes, well, you sold somebody, right? On you,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So,
Well done.
so yeah, there you go, right? And so yeah, it gives you a framework for just being interested in people and creating that relationship, because people buy from people. We have a saying in here, it's about emotion. People have to feel emotionally connected to you, and there's an element of trust that goes on in any conversation. And people today are inundated with I call it the trust curve, where because of the inundation of information from the internet, from whatever they're watching on media, they have a level of anxiety with anyone they talk to
Yeah,
as to, what are you trying to get at me? What's going on, right? And our whole job is to earn their trust in a conversation. And you do that through walking through this approach, right? If you do it properly, you'll earn their trust, and especially being willing to say, I can't help, is an incredible way to add to that trust factor,
absolutely.
because they don't feel like you're trying to sell them something, right? That's
I
amazing.
I agree. And you talked about all the media that's coming at us constantly. I found people generally seem to think that if they're overly skeptical, they're being smart. But actually, I've always found in these conversations that we have with people, the initial building the relationship is also trying to break down the skepticism on just the fact that two people can have a conversation, forget about what even the product is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's challenging nowadays.
it is because we all have our inherent bias, right? And it is very true. We're not really listening to each other anymore. You know what I mean? A lot of times, because you're trying to get all your information from other sources, when you can, why not just talk to each other? I
Yep.
just I was listening to a podcast, and there was actually a woman that had a business. She created a business of teaching Gen Zs how to talk to people,
Wow.
like on this talk, where basically they had a sales team, and they were she found that somebody brought her in basically because the team was afraid to have pick up the phone and talk to someone. They were doing all the digital. They're so used to digital and texting. And she literally made a business of how to teach that young generation how to have a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is just that inundation of technology has, I think, distracted us from what really matters,
Yes.
which is the conversation.
Yeah, and what's fascinating about all of that, Rob, is that there's a strange irony here that people are doing more. We just said you want to be a good listener, yet a lot of people are just listening on media. They're not responding to it. They're just being influenced. We used that word before. And so it really is a whole new market of just getting people to be aware that they can use this and this thing up here. And
Yeah.
you don't have to have a quick response as a salesperson or the person who's thinking about new ideas. You're allowed to think about it and then
Yeah.
respond. And politeness even comes into the whole process nowadays.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, very true. Like yeah, it's true. And we do that a lot. Like there's a lot of times I tell someone if we're having a sales conversation, I will actually say, I don't know the answer. Can I get back to you? Let me
And
think about it.
truth is an amazing thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It really is.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, think about it. That's our experience. If you have someone that's pitching like that to you, right? That you see them, they'll make stuff up and you know that it's insincere. It's are you trying to help me or trying to sell me something? So it plays into that, right?
Yeah.
So very
It,
interesting.
and it is. And you know, we were talking about from the top level entrepreneurs selling multi-billion-dollar technology,
Mm-hmm.
the person who's just started a side hustle and really wants to sell something. You need the money. You really do need
Mm-hmm.
the money, but the money comes when you're effectively building a relationship. I'm in the mortgage business, Rob, and
Mm-hmm.
certainly the last few years have been tough for people. But what I've been learning, my experience has been when I engage with people I've never met, they just see my advertising or there's a lot of referring they call. I find it so important just to talk to people about what they're after, not just, yeah, I'm this, give me this info, we'll see if we can get you funded next. I'm finding today people are uncomfortable because they've never had to take a loan before, other than perhaps their mortgage. They're
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed. I had a couple last night. They were embarrassed, and we had a talk about very quickly about you're entitled to feel how you are, but are you aware that there's never been a time in years where people have required to get a hand up or a hand or some help? That's not an embarrassing thing. That's genius to have the guts to reach out to search for the help. And thank you for
Mm-hmm.
calling. I
Mm-hmm.
don't say that just to play games. I feel
Mm-hmm.
that way for people. And I think when you're listening, you have to listen for what people are feeling and what
Yeah.
they're thinking. At the same time, good old selling causes fear for people because they hate rejection.
Yes.
And rejection to me has always been a comma, not a period. Because if
Mm-hmm.
someone takes the time to reject your thoughts, they're taking the time to say, but tell me more. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, very
Let's
true.
talk about the fear in selling when you're learning how to sell as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, that fear, it's actually true. What I find is that if you have the right mindset, that if I can't help, then that no is okay, right? The first
Right.
step, if you're saying sincerely we can't help, then a no is an okay answer. But if you can help, there is an element you do have to, if you know, because let's face it, as an entrepreneur, and I think we've said this already, if you have no revenue, there is no business.
Yeah.
You know, and so you've got to somehow generate the revenue. So what I find is that you have that objection that usually comes through when someone's asking about your price or whatever. It really comes down to there's a technique we talk about to help with that, right? And it really it's got 4 steps. We call it stop, listen, restate what you thought you heard, and then answer them, right? Because you're right. A lot of times the objection is because they want more information. It's an objection is just a buying signal. I like to call them. These are buying signals they give you. And listening is making sure you understood what they said. For example, sometimes people will say, well, I don't like the price. Well, first step is to stop. Instead of just saying, well, what price would work, and drop and lower your price, you stop and you say, well, let me ask you, what is it about the price you don't like? You know what I mean? So stop and listen, and then listen to what they say, and then you repeat it back to them. So let me see. It's not that you don't like the price. It's that you don't feel you're getting enough value for that amount of money.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Is there anything else we could add to help you with that decision? So right. So you're kind of you're really understanding the real problem. Sometimes we answer right away and we think that we're answering the question, but we're not. We're answering the wrong question. We got to answer the right question. So that's a little technique we teach in the book.
And I think it's brilliant because what you're doing at that point is you're bringing each other on the same team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you're now searching for, is there something needed? Is there not? Can I help you? But let's do this together as two respectful people. I'm not here to just put my hand in your pocket and try and take money out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's really good. Yeah, I've always been fascinated by the fear of the rejection, which in people's minds often equates to the fear of failure, when it's not at all. You're actually winning. You're actually doing a great job by listening and responding.
Yes.
Questions are great, as you said. It's good to ask probing questions. That's interesting. What did you mean by that? I mean, and they'll know if you're phony or not, but if you're not phony, you would do that even if you weren't trying to sell them something. You are just having a conversation.
Exactly. And that's the conversational aspect. Like, even if you weren't selling something, this is what a conversation looks like.
Yeah.
So why should it change if you're selling something, right? Just like you said, if you would be interested in somebody telling you their story.
Yeah.
If you were just in a party or at a social gathering.
Exactly.
So why should it be any different? You know?
Well, even with finding our life partners, it begins with a conversation.
That's right.
And you might be
curiosity.
trying to sell them on something, but the truth is, it starts with a conversation.
That's right. It does. Hopefully it starts with a conversation.
Exactly. Rob, one of the parts of your book that I love, and I love all of it, and ladies and gentlemen, you're going to love this. At the end of every chapter, the book gives you key points. And the key points are really, really exciting. But at the end of the book, Rob, you list all of them. I could pick any of them to ask you to comment on, but I love your talk in the book about sales triggers. What are sales triggers, and how do they even lead to buying? Buying, what's the word that you like to use? People are giving you opportunities that they're ready to buy. So talk about this whole triggers and the buying messages.
Sure. The sales triggers are a key part of your value message and how you articulate your value. Yep. And a sales trigger comes from the concept of that your customers value something about what you do great. So I'll give you how we approach it. So Frank and I, we start with every entrepreneur we work with. We start out with crafting what is that value message. And it's based on all the goodness you deliver to your customers from their perspective.
Right.
Okay. Not from your perspective, from their perspective. And when you craft that message properly, you want to provide that value back to someone in a simple statement, something very simple, one sentence. So it's not complicated. You can articulate. I hate this word, but it does kind of articulate how you want to present this. It's like that elevator statement, right?
Yep.
When you're in the elevator, you've got 30 seconds. What can you say to stimulate curiosity? And what a sales trigger is, it's an element of how you articulate that value, but without revealing how you do it without revealing all the details. It's just a statement that provides a little glimpse into how you might help them.
Uh-huh.
And maybe I can give an example here. And it's I know we're trying to, I know this is basically a corporate example. So it's like one of our customers that we did this work for. And they were a company they were an agricultural company. They have an agricultural technology. And this was very revealing to us. Did you know that if you can change the lighting in a poultry barn, and you can manipulate the lighting and the lighting spectrum, you can make great chickens grow bigger and faster, and
Really?
you can make hens lay more eggs, right?
Wow. Wow.
So we worked with a company that we helped them build their statement. And basically their statement was, we have a proven lighting system that helps poultry farmers improve their product, improve, I'm trying to remember by memory here, improve their productivity while lowering their costs of their poultry barn, right? And so the sales trigger in there is improve your productivity with a lighting system. How do you do that? Right? So it's designed to stimulate that curiosity, because and notice it's from the poultry barn, from the, I guess, the poultry farmer's perspective. How do you improve my productivity? We're not talking about the bulb. We're not talking about the lighting. We're talking about your your barn's productivity. And so that people go with the dissonance, how do you take lighting and improve my productivity? So that's a sales trigger, because they come back to us and say, well, how do you do that? And that's the buying signal. And as soon as they say, how do you do that? Now I can just have a conversation, because they've started the conversation.
Correct.
I haven't pitched my product on them. They've engaged and they've started the conversation with me instead of the other way around. Hopefully that helps. Sales triggers, yeah.
And that's brilliant. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you pick up on that. And I know, Rob, you talk about it more in the book, and it's a fabulous example. It really, really is. I just have to say this. You really just gave the chicken or the egg answer to selling. So
there you go.
Forgive me, everybody. I can't help myself. Now, Rob, just as we're getting near the end, I got to tell you, this is stimulating and fascinating. I also had a teacher many, many years ago. He's passed on now, but he used to say, Neil, if you do have someone who gets to the point where they're interested in buying, do what you say that you're going to do. If you tell someone, all right, let me do the following for you, whatever it is, please do it. And please do it in a timely fashion. I think, especially in this day and age where people lack patience, I think doing what you promised is a big part of sales, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how you create, because that's what they bought, right? You've told them, you've been truthful, and if you are sincere, then that's what they purchased, right? So don't not do that.
Exactly.
And that's how you break a relationship, when you don't do that, right?
And if you
you know
can't do it, don't be afraid to call them and say,
I-
I misspoke myself a little bit. Here's what I found out. Here's where we are right now. Communication and quick response, as you've been saying, is so important. So important.
Well, the play on that is, we talked about rejection earlier. The reason, if you can't do it, and people, I've seen it, they hesitate to deal with that conflict, because that is rejection. So I find that they don't say, I've seen it happen. You're right. When you don't deliver, if you can't do it, and then they don't bring it up, right? Because they're afraid of the conflict that it might create. And it just creates more conflict once you're past that situation, right? It absolutely happens.
Yeah, and it's a big part of relationship. There's no question. Rob, let's tell our viewers, and we hope that you enjoyed this, and I'm going to encourage you to reach out to Rob, get that book. Rob, how do they order your book? And then also, if they want to delve deeper into your business offerings and what you and Frank offer, give us some contact info, please.
Sure. Yeah. If they'd like to order the book, it's available on Amazon. and I'll just make it simple for people. You just search Sales Made Easy for Entrepreneurs.
Great.
And if you search for that, you'll find the book. You'll be able to download it. So we enjoyed the read. Yeah, there it is there. Thank you, Neil. And then if you do have a challenge and you're trying to grow your business, you can reach out to us at getmoresalescorp.com.
Okay.
And that is our company site. You'll be able to find what we do there as far as a fractional model. We help companies get more sales with less risk. We provide them with an alternative to hiring a salesperson and provide them with senior experience. I love the name of your podcast, Your Gray Matters, like senior guys with, and I'm going to say it, gray hair or no hair, that have experience, that have been around the block, and basically we can come help your company and do the work, not just help you build, tell you what to do, come in and actually do the work and help you build it. So that's what I leave them with.
Well, it's fantastic. And Rob, I have to ask you one other thing that I should have asked earlier, but
Sure.
you used the term fractional sales. Can you take a second? What are fractional sales?
Oh, okay, sure. Fractional sales, basically we provide a company with senior experienced sales individuals for less than the price of hiring a junior sales individual.
Wow.
Right? And the way we do it is by fractionally having those people work with a variety of different accounts, right? Different customers. Okay. But we take it to the next level at Get More Sales Corp. We surround that fractional sales individual with a team of people that helps you go from generating the leads for your business all the way to closing the deals.
Wow.
On your behalf. So we handled it, and we do it under your umbrella and your company umbrella. So it's kind of like sales as a service.
Well,
so we provide you that.
Thank you. See, we left the best for last.
There you
So
go.
everybody, now that you know what that is, I can vouch for Rob and his company, and I invite you to contact them. We're going to post all of this information in the description as usual. Rob, thanks for coming on. This has been really interesting. I'm very pleased that you would take the time to come on to our show. Everybody have a great week. And as always, we'll see you next Monday.
Thanks, Neil.
Hey, everybody. Thanks very much for watching today. We appreciate it. Please subscribe to our podcast. It really helps us grow and it makes us stronger, and we appreciate you doing it.